911 operators of Reddit, what are some of the funniest things someone has called in for? There are funny calls that come in all the time. I talked to a pizza delivery guy who couldn't reach his destination because a defiant chicken was standing in the middle of the road. I stayed with him on the phone as he pleaded with it to finally move along. Truly a chicken crossing the road moment. Another time I took a call where a guy insisted he was in an argument with a man dressed as a giant Pepsi bottle. He said the man in the Pepsi suit had stolen his debit card and refused to give it back. Upon arrival, the officers told me he was high as and arguing with a vending machine. Caller called because they got their head stuck in a cat tree, with the cat stuck inside with it. Throughout the call I kept hearing like, ow, frick, and dude, this isn't fun for me either, dude, I know, frick. Dude? Caller ended up going to the hospital for a minor case of serious head lacerations. Okay, I don't really know the severity, but I'm sure they got some stitches. The other cool thing was that the caller was using an Apple Watch to call 911 because obviously they wouldn't be able to hold the phone to their ear. We get about a dozen missed dials from Apple Watches a day. It was nice to finally see one being used for real. I briefly worked as a 911 operator. When someone called on the non-emergency line, we always answered the same way, blank police and fire, this is a recorded line, how can I help you? We get a call on that line, I answer as usual, and a very inebriated sounding woman asks the following. Hypothetically speaking, if my boyfriend had a few grams of cocaine and I called the police to tell them about it, would either of us get into any trouble? You're calling the police on a recorded line. I know, but what does the law say? I don't know, I'm not a police officer, would you like me to send one? Yes please. She gives me her address. An officer responded, but there were no arrests. That one had me scratching my head. A guy called in because his dog had bitten a seagull and was now acting strange. He demanded we find the bird, capture it, and test it for rabies. The whole circumstances were vague and he was unwilling to listen to reasonable advice, like that birds can't carry rabies. He had the audacity to file a complaint when informed we would not be doing what he wanted. Had a grown man calling in about a monster trying to get into his son's room. He's the right kind of frantic where I know it's not a mental health crisis, but I still couldn't figure it out. Well, he's a Middle Eastern male with a real thick accent and I was having a hard time understanding, so he gave the phone to his son. The monster had climbed a tree and was at his bedroom window. And it was as big as his dog. And it has hands like him but tiny. Wait, what? Right there I told the kid to see if it had rings on his tail. Yes. They had just moved to America a month ago and had never heard of raccoons. I couldn't mute myself fast enough, and the father heard me laughing. I think that's what helped calm him down. I explained what a trash panda was and welcomed him to our wild jungle. A little kid called 911 because he wanted the cops to come arrest his brother. You see, their mom said that the caller's brother was supposed to share the Legos, but he wasn't sharing. The caller's brother said that he was playing with all of the Legos, which wasn't possible. There were too many Legos for one person to play with all of them at once, argued our caller. Therefore, his brother was a liar, a jerk, and a turd, and we needed to come and arrest him. We had a high degree of confidence that this wasn't a coded request for help, so we asked to speak to an adult, confirmed that there was no distress, and closed the case. Share your Legos, kids. Former dispatcher here. My funniest call was a guy called in and said he wanted to report a pig running around. I had to ask a pig, as in curly-tailed pig. He said yes sir, he's running by Taco Bell now. I dispatch out animal control, who gets on scene and asks for help. One of our officers assists, and for the next 40 minutes or so I got to listen to two of the city's finest chase a young pig around businesses. Once the pig was finally caught, it was determined the pig came from a transport truck. The driver said he didn't want the pig back, so the pig was given to the Humane Society. Never did hear what happened to the little fellow after that. I had a sweet-sounding older lady call because people were setting off fireworks and she was concerned the wildlife would get scared and get hit by a vehicle. When I told her that the fire department was being sent to check it out, she got furious, saying she doesn't want the fire department, that it was a waste of taxpayers' dollars, and that she would never call again. Lady called in because she thought Willie Nelson was having a cardiac arrest in her trailer and she needed an ambulance. I started giving her CPR instructions, and come to find out when paramedics got there she was doing compressions on the couch cushions. Not me, but my wife, who works both as a secretary for a fire department and is a volunteer firefighter (EMT). A lady calls asking if she can donate a building for a training burn-in. After asking questions she finds out it's not a building but an RV. More questions. It's not her RV, it was abandoned on her property. Just a few more questions. It's not exactly abandoned. It's her ex-husband's RV. And he's living in it and won't leave. She wants my wife's fire department to burn it down. Wife's fire department declined. I called the non-emergency police line once for my across-the-way neighbor playing Christmas music at all hours for 7 months straight. Turns out I live next to a deaf building and the person had no idea that their music was 1, playing 24/7, and 2, so loud I could hear it in any room of my apartment across the driveway. The operator was absolutely cracking up because I was like, look, it's July, I can't take hearing Holy Night again. The call back I got when they made contact with the person was absolutely hilarious. The cop couldn't stop chuckling every few words. A friend had cops called on him cause he was doing liquid at the train station. It's a form of dancing at raves where your hands seem to look like liquid. The person who called the cops was scared it was satanic or something. I am not a dispatcher. But when I was a child and like 6, I called the police from the home phone and asked if they would come play with me because I didn't have friends. So they showed up, because they have to respond, and I got a lecture from the police and my military parents about the seriousness of calling 911. It was Father's Day, mind you, had this particular kid, about 5 years old, call in at least 6 times, but he'd never stay on the line long enough for us to get a good ping on his cell phone. It was probably about 2200. Local at the time, not early but not too late in the night. Long story short, we were finally able to get him to stay on the phone long enough by talking about how his teddy bear was sick. We asked to speak to his parents and he told us they were in bed and the door was locked, so we asked him to go knock on the door. He then told us he had been locked in his room. Okay. I think we know what's going on now. By this point we had an officer en route to this kid's house to go make sure everything was okay and to tell his parents the kid has been calling 911. The officer arrives on scene, a few minutes go by, then the officer comes over the radio and says, S120. Back in service, the teddy bear is 10-4. The officer made his way up to the comm center and proceeded to tell us all that the kid's dad answered the door wearing only boxer shorts and was more than a little agitated when he found out his son had been calling 911. Apparently the dad had been getting his Father's Day gift from mom when the officer showed up. Not me, but my dad. He gets a call from an old lady saying she can't find her husband's gun. He asks, "Where did you see it last?" And she goes, "Well, I wanted to hide it from my husband, so I put it in the toaster, and then I donated the toaster to a thrift store." "So, you put the gun in the toaster, then donated said toaster to a store?" Yes, I did." "Well, I can't help you with that. Toaster of doom, we like to call it." Not a dispatcher but a neighbor of mine who was off his meds called 911 about a duck threatening him. Police arrived because ducks are mean and can mess you up. Dude was in his porch trying to leave, but the dick kept honking at him and flapping like a madman. Police arrived and they saw the lone duck bullying the old man and then about a couple dozen in the backyard, which was close to a small lake, munching on bread. Turns out he kept forgetting he fed the ducks and kept coming outside to throw more bread. Either the lone duck wanted more bread or he was trying to stop the man from overfeeding him, I'll never know. I once took a call from a man who stated his pizza had been stolen from his doorstep and he was convinced someone in his building took it because he could still smell it. When asking the time frame of the pizza theft, he said within the last 4 hours. He ordered it and had it delivered and intentionally took a nap, leaving it out for 4 hours unattended. He demanded police respond immediately to interrogate all of his neighbors. If you enjoyed the content, consider leaving a like and subscribing, it truly helps out. Thank you.